Whenever you hear about retirement planning, it always seems to come back to the same old ideas, right? The 4% rule, planning for a 30-year timeline. But what if that's not your story? What if your retirement is going to be much, much shorter? Well, today we're going to dive into some really fascinating data that completely challenges those one-size-fits-all rules. And honestly, the results might just change the way you think about your entire financial future. This is the big question, isn't it? It doesn't matter if you're just starting your career or you're about to wrap it up, this is the puzzle we're all trying to solve. How do you make absolutely sure that your nest egg lasts as long as you do? We're about to see how changing just one single variable, the length of your retirement, can totally flip the answer on its head. So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the standard rule of thumb that everybody talks about. Then, we're going to question it and ask, what if things are shorter? After that, we'll dig into some powerful simulation results, test them against nearly a century of real market history, and then wrap it all up with the most important part, the takeaway and a critical warning for you. All right, first up, the retirement rule of thumb. Let's start with the conventional wisdom that pretty much all financial advice is built on, and then we'll see why it might be time to poke some holes in it. So this 30-year model is basically the foundation for almost every retirement calculator out there. The idea is simple. You stop working around 65, maybe when you can get Medicare, and then you need your money to last you all the way into your mid-90s. But get this, according to Social Security data, only about 1 out of every 7 people actually lives that long. So it's a super conservative starting point, but it's the one almost everyone uses. But here's the thing, not everyone fits into that neat little box. So let's explore what happens to your money if you're actually planning for a much shorter retirement. And there are some really practical, real-world reasons why this might be your situation. Maybe you just loved your job and worked into your 70s. Or on a more somber note, it could be because of a difficult health diagnosis. Or maybe you just need your investments to be a bridge fund, a pot of money to cover you for 5 or 10 years until a pension kicks in, or you decide to take Social Security, or maybe an inheritance is on the way. For any of these reasons, planning for 30 years just makes no sense at all. Okay, now for the really cool part, the simulation results. This is where we get to see exactly how the odds of success change when we start shrinking that retirement window. All right, now check this out. The best way to understand this is to think of it like a weather forecast for your money. That vertical line, the y-axis, that's volatility, how bumpy the ride is. The horizontal one, the x-axis, is your average return, how much you're making. And the color? Well, green is good. It means your portfolio survived with an over 98% success rate. Red is where it gets risky. And as you can see, for a 10-year retirement, pulling out 4.5% a year is, well, it's almost solid green. It's incredibly safe. And this right here, this slide, shows you everything you need to know about the power of time. On the left, you've got that beautiful, safe, green 10-year plan. But look what happens on the right. This is a 25-year retirement with the exact same 4.5% withdrawal rate. Suddenly, a huge chunk of that map turns red. Why? Because that longer timeline gives bad luck, like a market crash right after you retire, so much more power to derail your entire plan. So the bottom line from all these simulations is pretty straightforward. If your retirement horizon is 15 years or less, a 4.5% withdrawal rate is shown to be extremely safe. It holds up across a massive range of different investment types, everything from conservative bonds to high-growth stocks. The risk of running out of money is just remarkably low. Okay, so this, of course, leads to a very, very tempting question. If the risk is so low at 4.5%, does that mean we have some wiggle room? Does a shorter time frame give us permission to maybe push that withdrawal rate a little higher? How much more could you really take out each year? Well, according to the simulations, the answer is a pretty resounding yes. Look at this. On the left is our original 4.5% plan. On the right, we have cranked the withdrawal rate all the way up to 7% for that same 10-year period. And yet, you see a little red creeping in on the left for lower return assets, but there is still a massive green zone of success for portfolios that are heavy in stocks. It really suggests that a much higher withdrawal rate could actually be possible. Simulations are great, they really are, but they're just models. The real stress test is to see how these ideas hold up against actual history, with all its real-world chaos, its crashes, and its incredible booms. So before we look at the historical data, I want you to see what success and failure actually look like. This is sometimes called a spaghetti chart. Each one of those thin gray lines is one possible future for a 20-year retirement. Most of them, as you can see, finish with plenty of cash to spare. But those few lines that just nosedive to zero, That's portfolio failure. That's exactly what we're trying to avoid. Okay, so here it is. This is what actually happened in the real world. This chart shows what would have happened if you started a 20-year retirement, pulling out 4.5% a year in every single year, from 1920 all the way to 2015. And look at it, it is almost completely green. That means through the Great Depression, World War II, the insane inflation of the 70s, the dot-com bust, this strategy worked. In fact, out of nearly 100 different start years they tested, there was only one. A single failure. That's it. Just one. If you had the terrible luck to start your 20-year retirement in 1969, right before a nasty period of high inflation and bad stock returns, your portfolio would have run dry. But every single other start date was a success. All right, so what happens if we get really bold? Let's take what we learned from the simulations and test a super aggressive 8% withdrawal rate, but over a short 10-year retirement. Let's throw that against the same historical data. Now, this feels like it should be incredibly risky, right? And yet, you won't believe it. It held up. Even at an 8% withdrawal rate, which sounds crazy high, there were only 2 points of failure in almost 100 years of data. Just 2. If you had retired in 1973, right at the start of a huge bear market, or in 2000 at the absolute peak of the dot-com bubble, you would have failed. Every other 10-year period, it worked. So, after all that data, all those charts, what's the actual takeaway for you? Let's boil this all down to what really matters. Here are the big things to remember. First, you are not locked into the 30-year model if it doesn't fit your life. Second, planning for a shorter time period can potentially let you support a much higher withdrawal rate. And third, these shorter timelines mean your portfolio can handle more bumps in the road, which is why even 100% stock portfolios did so well in those historical tests. But we have to end on this, and it's a critical warning that comes straight from the source of this analysis. The data shows that you could take on more risk and you could withdraw more money over these shorter periods, but the smartest path is always to take on the least amount of risk you need to in order to reach your goals. This data opens up new possibilities, for sure, but it is not a license to be reckless. It's a tool to help you plan smarter and in a way that's personalized to you. So the real question isn't just, how much can I take? The better question is, how much risk do I actually need to take?